You ever wonder why so many construction projects just completely go off the rails? Well, today we are pulling back the curtain on the secret weapon that really separates a successful project from a total disaster. And spoiler alert, it's not some fancy tool or a giant machine. It's a document. Let's dive in.
I mean, we've all heard the horror stories, haven't we? That dream home renovation that just spirals into a nightmare of surprise costs. Or that huge new office building that opens, a year behind schedule. It's such a common problem, and it almost always boils down to one simple thing, just pure chaos. Think about it. You've got dozens of different contractors, thousands of materials, and just countless moving parts all at once. You absolutely cannot just wing it. You need a single, rock-solid master plan. Because without one, all you get is confusion, endless arguments, and, let's be honest, failure. And that is where our hero finally enters the scene, the Bill of Quantities, or as you'll hear it called, the BOQ. This is the master plan. It's the document that wades into that chaos we were talking about and brings some serious order to the whole process. It's basically the project's Bible. So what is this thing exactly? Well, the easiest way to think about it is like the ultimate, most detailed shopping list for an entire building. And I mean incredibly detailed. It's a full breakdown of absolutely everything you need, right down to the exact number of concrete blocks and even the hours of labor it's going to take to install them. The source material we looked at calls it a single source of truth. And honestly, that is the perfect way to describe it. This is the one document that everyone on the project, from the owner to the architect to every single contractor, is looking at. It makes sure everybody is playing from the exact same playbook, no exceptions. Okay, and this is really where the magic happens. The BOQ takes a huge, overwhelming project and just breaks it down into tiny, manageable pieces. See, each and every item is described in detail, it's measured, and it's quantified. Then the contractors come in and just fill in their price for each little piece. What you get is a totally transparent breakdown of the cost. It's a surprisingly simple system, but it brings so much clarity. But the BOQ doesn't work alone. It's not a solo act. It's really the heart of what's called the tender package. That's the whole collection of documents that contractors use to figure out their price and bid on a job. It's backed up by all the blueprints, the technical specs, and of course the legal contract. Together, they form this complete, legally binding instruction manual for the project. All right, so now we know what a BOQ is. Let's follow it on its journey, right? We're going to see how this single document guides a project from just an idea on a piece of paper all the way to a finished building. So the whole journey kicks off with a specialist called a quantity surveyor. Their job is to create this super detailed list. Then that list gets sent out, and contractors use it to put together their bids. This is huge for the owner because it means they can compare all the bids on an apples-to-apples basis. And once they pick a winner, that BOQ gets baked right into the legal contract, and it guides every single payment until the very last nail is hammered in. And this is why it matters so much. The BOQ creates a totally level playing field. It just gets rid of all the guesswork. Suddenly, the owner isn't just looking at a bunch of random final prices. No, they're comparing detailed costs for the exact same amount of work. And that right there leads to much fairer and way more transparent competition. And honestly, the results really do speak for themselves. When you have a super clear scope right from the beginning, you get way fewer arguments down the line. Payments are fair, they're accurate because they're based on what's actually been done. Everybody knows exactly what their job is. It's basically a blueprint for a smooth, successful project. But, okay, even with the most perfect plan in the world, things can go wrong. And in the world of construction, sometimes the biggest, scariest threats are the ones you literally can't see. Yep, we're talking about what's lurking just beneath the surface of the ground. A lot of building sites, especially in cities, have this hidden history, a legacy of whatever was there before, and that can often include some pretty nasty, hazardous stuff. And these are not small problems. We're talking about things like asbestos, heavy metals from old factories, even stuff like petrol or oil spills from decades ago. Finding something like that halfway through a project, it can bring the entire job to a screeching halt. And that means huge delays and cleanup costs that were nowhere in the budget. So when you do find contamination, you've basically got two paths you can take. The first is called remediation. That's where you physically dig up and remove the bad soil or treat it on site to get rid of the threat for good. The other option is containment. With that, you actually leave the contaminated soil where it is, but you seal it off with special barriers to make sure it can't spread and cause any harm. And guess what?
This is where our hero, the BOQ, swoops back in to save the day. A really well-made BOQ actually anticipates this kind of risk. It'll have specific line items for things like testing the soil and for the potential cleanup work. It turns what could be a complete financial disaster into just another manageable, planned expense. Okay, so the bouquet is clearly a powerful tool, but it's not magic. It's not foolproof. You know the saying, a tool is only as good as the person using it? Well, that's absolutely true here. So let's look at a few critical mistakes that can completely undermine its power.
We're going to break down 4 really common pitfalls. These are the kinds of mistakes that can take this amazing document, this project savior, and turn it into the source of a whole new set of arguments. Mistake number 1 is a classic. Garbage in, garbage out. It's that simple. If the person putting the BOQ together messes up the math on how much concrete is needed, or, completely forgets to list the windows, the entire budget is just wrong from day one. Accuracy here isn't just important, it's everything.
All right, mistake number 2, being vague. Vagueness is your absolute worst enemy here. If you have a line item that just says install door, well, that's a recipe for disaster. What kind of door are we talking about? A cheap hollow core door or a custom-made solid oak one? If you don't have those specifics, you're just setting yourself up for fights over quality and money. The details, they are everything.
Number 3, using outdated prices. Look, the cost of materials and labor does not stay the same. Prices can change really, really fast, especially these days. So if you're building your budget based on old numbers, you're pretty much guaranteed to blow that budget before a single worker even steps on site. And that brings us to mistake number 4, completely ignoring what's under the ground. We just talked about this. Failing to even plan for the possibility of contamination is a huge financial gamble, and it's a bet that almost never, ever pays off. So all of this really leaves you with one big question to chew on, right? In this crazy, complex world of modern construction, what's actually more important for success? Is it the hammer and the saw, the physical tools that put the building together, or is it the spreadsheet, the planning tool, that makes sure it all gets done on time, on budget, and without all that chaos? If you ask me, the evidence is pretty clear. It's all in the plan.